the simpler it is, like it's like sushi. It's fish on rice. I mean, that's it. A little wasabi.
Yeah, but it's just like
it's the really simple things that are, man.
So is it also frustrating? Like, I'm sure there are moments wherein you fuck up the dough or the bread, and you're like, but I guess it's a process, right?
I hope we're not insulting any chefs as we're talking about this. But it is frustrating. In a way, it's like what we do because everybody has access. It's just a camera. Everybody has access to camera now. But they're little tweaks, little frames of mind, and little techniques that you start to learn, that you start to perfect.
Yeah.
And it helps, man. Small little things like the way I've been kneading the dough help. I changed that. I experimented with that. Just play around with it.
And like Snap, I mean, you take care of plants. So I think it's a similar thing.
Yeah.
Snap, I need to get in a side Zoom with you because I have a black thumb. I have 2 black thumbs. I am personally responsible for deforesting my house.
It's just about getting the right plants. I mean, you don't want the ones that are difficult to take care of, or like sometimes when they grow, because the higher they grow, the deeper the roots go.
Yeah.
I really was in agriculture for quite some time.
Agriculture in Mindanao. Whoa, unpack that. Those are 2 very big words. Unpack. Am I taking over your conversation?
No. This is the conversation. It's going to flow.
Wait, agriculture. Unpack that whole thing.
I ran a farm that basically produced copra primarily, just like most farmers in the Philippines. And then we decided to intercrop. We planted about, I think, 2,000 trees of mangosteen, and then 10,000 trees of longkong, the seedless lanzones, the Thai lanzones. We also did red lady papaya as a cash crop because, the lanzones and the mangosteen, it takes about 5 years for that to
5 years.
Really, matagal. And then intermittent siya. Like yung seedless lanzones. You understand Tagalog, right, Paco?
Yeah. I look imported, but I made in Batangas.
Pare. Magkakaintindihan tayo lahat.
Barako, bro.
So, yeah. Nice. So, yun, basically, matagal Kasi there are some years na you'll have a good harvest. And then the next year, wala. Especially, I think 2 years ago, there was an El Nino. Diba? And the drought. Oh, no, that was last year, I think. So the drought it has an effect, especially in Mindanao since they're closer to the equator.
Yeah.
But the soil is very good, but the heat and lack of irrigation systems are definitely challenging.
Do you still have the farm?
Yeah.
You still run the farm? Cool.
I stepped down as a chairman of the board and president because it kind of went hand in hand with my trading business. We basically traded commodities and we helped teach people how to use molasses as material for an organic method of creating your own fertilizer at home.
Molasses? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you've gone from farm to sort of home. I mean, I know a bunch of people who are into hydroponics now and sort of...
So many, man.
My mom is actually into it as well at home. So it's like, wow, you're such a tita, mom. When I go home, I'm like... you gotta fix this. You gotta, the roots gotta be under the water. It can't, if it's not touching, it's not getting anything.
Well, like with bread, it's the little details that really count, yeah.
Oh, I feel you, man. I think everyone kind of needs to work with their hands. Now, like with me, like I've been painting obsessively. Like it's just I mean, it's really art therapy for me. Like being able to I do abstract art, so it's very intuitive, and it's like for the first time I'm in control of one thing, and I don't need to manage other people. I don't need to manage clients. It's just me and the canvas, and when I feel like stopping, I'll stop. And like when you share it, it's a very similar experience when you share your work, especially online. It becomes its own thing because it's not yours anymore. You gave it to the public, and they're gonna be there to unlike, or comment. And I think that's I don't know. I think we're living now in a very interesting time. Wherein I don't know how you feel about. I mean, you're also active on social media, but what would it be like if you all went back to analog, wherein we'd just be baking bread painting without an audience, just for ourselves. Like, I wonder how that would be having experienced social media already. Like, I think that's gonna be tough.
It's a reverse of what we experienced, basically, right? I mean, Gen X and Y, the analog to digital. So what you're saying is the full reverse. It might be more challenging than it was for us to adapt to use the technology.
Yeah, I don't know, but like Paco, like I mean, you like with especially, I mean, you're so, you're in publication and photography.
True. Yeah.
I mean, you're very in that world, and at the same time, you're connecting with a lot of people. How has it changed now? How has it impacted you?
I'm also the oldest one of the three of us, so I think I'll speak for the Gen Xers. I think I'm a Gen Xer, tail end or early. Sorry, the start of the Gen X. Couple of things. I started photography with film. I mean, there was no digital to speak of. The first digital camera I had like 2.5 megapixels, which is ridiculous now.
Yes.
But I started with film, and it was an adaptive process to move to digital. But like so many things in technology, it made things easier, but it also changed the way you do things. In photography, people are going back to film, and there's all this mystique. But sometimes I think we think of the past overly romantically. We romanticize that, back in the day was better, was simpler. I like that I can take a picture, look at my monitor, show the client and say, hey, look, this is the picture approved. Yes, we're good. We used to have to wait hours or days for that before. I guess shooting film as a hobby is great. If I could, I'd shoot it. But as a professional tool, I'm totally into digital, man, completely into digital.
Yeah.
And it makes my work possible today. And I think, Nikki, it makes your work possible today as well.
Yeah, for sure.
You can communicate with teams in the field, anywhere around the world.
Yeah.
You can edit. You can do so many things that were impossible. But maybe what you're speaking of is the return to a simpler view of life.
Yeah. More,
not necessarily physically or technologically.
Yeah. I mean, how are you? I mean, now life is way slower now. Like, how has it changed your life? I mean, you were living a fast-paced life, and now we're all grounded. Like, so what's it like now?
Business-wise, it's been horrible. I mean, as you can imagine, because sure. all my clients involve getting on an aircraft usually and going somewhere in the Philippines or anywhere around the world. So that's stopped. So I'm taking out my frustrations on dough every like twice a week. But it's given me time with my kids, which has been great. I don't know if they appreciate it that much. I think they're getting tired of me. They're going, when's your next trip, Dad? You've been around for 5 months, man. We're not used to this. Because I can't photograph or I can't shoot video. I've had time to work more closely with the team at Grid. We're doing podcasts. We're exploring different creative outlets that, we didn't have time for before, or we didn't have the energy before. So in that sense, it's good. It's a bit of a pause. I hope it's not a very long pause.
Hope so
I hope it picks back up again. But for you guys, what's it been like for you guys?
Basically, my work didn't stop. Yeah, my work didn't stop. I shifted from rural Philippines to a corporate job. I work for the Sobels now, AC Energy.
Oh.
So we still we're still doing developments for renewable energy power plants.
Oh, awesome.
So I'm still out in the field every week, pretty much. This week, wala. Next week, ulit.
Nice, but it's all driving, I guess. All at least going out.
I flew to Mindanao last month.
What's it like flying now, man? I mean, sorry, are you going commercial or are you going private?
Commercial.
What's it like flying now? Domestically?
It's quite a process. It's definitely, the queues are longer. So to even get into the airport, you have to have an authority to travel issued by the regional director of the PNP. So you go to your barangay, get yourself certified that you're medically fit. Then you go to the police PNP station, submit it there. And then it's quite a process, but doable. And then when you land, before even entering the airport, you're in another queue, and then they're checking all your information. There is social distancing, like every other seat, wala talaga.
In the aircraft, it's like 50% capacity. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, maybe even less.
Cool.
Because
that's surprising though. Because like I've been seeing like I guess news clips on like Canada and the States wherein the flights are full.
Yeah, it's packed. Yeah,
like to the brim. But I mean, I guess that's why the stats are like going up. But yeah, with Minaman, like I think it's Seabiscuit took a really big hit for the first 3 to 4 months. Like there was zero business, so that was scary. Like we had to make really big adjustments, and everyone kind of had to bite the bullet. But luckily now things are kind of it was getting better. Then we're under lockdown again, so things are a bit uncertain. But for me, surprisingly, since I've been focusing on teaching yoga and meditation, it's been pretty busy. Like I really had to shift into teaching online, which is really strange in the beginning. Like to think we're behind the cameras, like to be in front of one is a totally different experience. Like it took a while. It took a while to get used to it, but now I guess I'm used to it, but I don't want it to. There's still a part of me that refuses to accept it because I really miss the in-person classes. And I think, even shoots, you want to be in front of people. You want to be in those places. So I think it's funny because like a few days ago, I think I went through a meltdown because like I think I was just in denial for so long that this was the new normal, that I was still hoping. I mean, I still am hoping for it to go back to some semblance of normal, but it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. I mean, I'm sure you feel it's a whirlwind of emotions too, right? It's a roller coaster.
Yeah, there are good days and bad days. The thing too, though, even if let's say a vaccine comes out by December, which is everybody's hoping for and praying for, and I hope it happens.
Yeah,
we're still in a global economic recession, and just because a vaccine comes out in December doesn't mean a global recession ends in January. No. I mean, I'm not an economist, but I mean the hole we're in is going to take a while to dig ourselves out of. So, I think projects will be thin on the ground, unemployment will be high for a time to come.
Yeah, no, I think that's the scary part for sure. Because, like, I think
sorry to be the downer in the group.
No.
It's I think it's good to be aware of the reality.
Yeah.
Rather than just blindly assuming what you believe is true, right? Some people may believe that once the vaccine comes in a month, magically,
we're good now. Yeah, we're back to normal. No,
okay, but that's not reality. Right? You have to have expectations that are pragmatic and not reaching for the rainbows in the sky. I mean,
that's true. Well, I'm glad to see energy is doing well. I think that anything that's infrastructure and the essentials is doing okay, right? That sector at least is still somewhat solid because your plans aren't monthly plans. You're looking 5, 10, 15 years ahead, right? For energy creation. It's not. So your business isn't happening in 2021. Your business is happening in 2030, right?
Yeah, well, some of the projects are really that far down the line. Yeah. You're right. That's really how energy because there's so many things that come into play, especially when you're working in like the more remote areas.
Yeah, I'm super curious about that. Nikki, can I hijack your conversation again?
Oh no, please, man. Like we want. This is the first time that we want you to hijack conversation because like others don't even respond. They don't know how to converse.
You have to keep driving the other.
Yeah, please. Like, interject and interject.
Asking the question. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm super curious because full disclosure, I've done work for Ayala before. I've taken pictures of the CEOs and Don Jaime. Really, really great. Where is the alternative energy push coming because in the Philippines there was a big hullabaloo about solar. Morocco is going to get into it. We have hydro, which has its issues. We have the Eloic energy up north, which Ayala bought into. I'm not trying to show my stock portfolio, but where are you going? Where is it going?
The push is really to keep going renewable. If you noticed over the past few years, they've really been acquiring more stake and more power plants that are powered by renewable energy.
And when you say renewable, in the Philippines? What does renewable mean?
Okay, renewable in the Philippines means number one, geothermal, which is the biggest contributor to renewable energy. Although, on a personal opinion, I don't think it should be counted because that's just a personal opinion. I'm not a scientist or an engineer, but it's just like natural gas that's coming out of the not like LNG, but just like it's steam basically coming from under the core. So I don't know if they can measure that or like if that's like a forever kind of thing, right?
Right. I mean, this is all metric. This is volcanic activity and sort of tectonic plates and things heating up.
Versus like, let's say solar, where you just put it on the surface and then it just gets light and turns that into electricity. And then wind basically just follows the wind pattern. And then when the turbine turns, the copper coil inside generates electricity as well.
Cool.
So, the problem with those two types of RE is that they're variable.
Yeah.
So without base load or battery storage, it would be very difficult to give a consistent supply to the grid.
Dude, don't talk to photographers about batteries, man. I mean, we're waiting for the breakthrough. Don't talk to me about. I can open a case back there.
Waiting for.
I mean, everybody says that the big roadblock to renewables is batteries, right? As far as I understand it, right? That the storage capacity it's a technology that's been. I mean, it's old, right?
But isn't it an economic thing, though? I mean, it's like a business move, like. We want you to keep buying our batteries. We're never gonna make them last. Like, I don't know.
It's even bigger than that because, for example, you get nickel, which is the primary component of lithium, one of the primary components of lithium ion from a country like the Philippines. You ship out the ore and then it's refined somewhere else, and then maybe it's brought back to an assembly facility in a special economic zone, and then brought back out and put into retail products like laptops, cameras, phones. And then eventually sold back to retail markets.
It's a long process,
like I wouldn't even want to eat into the whole process. Just the refining and the manufacturing, putting it in one central area. Whoever's making the most of it, ASEAN primarily, right? I mean, I think Russia also has quite a bit, but definitely ASEAN.
Oh, so interesting.
That's the dream, diba, Nikki? That's the dream.
Yeah,
Charging stations, batteries, electric cars, and motorcycles.
I thought Nikki was going to start making batteries. I'm like, what?
No,
it all comes together. I mean, if we're able to do that as a country in like 20 years, we'll be pretty old. But like to see that actually happen, that would be amazing.
But I hope it doesn't happen because I think it's damaged a little bit. For example, it's come out in the recent years that Europe, the Western European nations have been number one or top of the 10 list of recycling plastics. And it's come out that all they're doing is they're putting it in a barge and sending it to us. I mean, and then they say, oh, we've recycled it. When in actual fact, what was the number? 98% of plastics are non-recycled. They just sort of moved from one place to the other. I mean, I hope renewables doesn't hit that point where they're saying, well, it does more environmental damage to create a battery than it is to actually use. So,
I get you completely. Like the whole life cycle of the battery has to be taken into account from when you're mining it until, because right now what's happening is you have a lot of small pit mines or these mga, what would you call them, guerrilla miners, and then obviously there are no standards, and then they're just pumping everything out.
But it's how can you be against? I mean, you could be texting on your iPhone. I'm against mining. Blah 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 blah. Everything in that phone was mined. I mean, it came out of the earth. I mean, I think that where the debate has to happen is how does it come out of the earth? We're not saying don't
agree.
Take it out of the earth. It's saying we have to do this properly, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Not just dump it into the river and let the river dump it into the sea.
I really don't understand how a human being can do that, to be honest. Like, when I hear Staff and I talked a lot about this, but I don't get it, man.
Hirap din ng buhay nila eh.
Yeah.
Victims of circumstance. What if that was the livelihood that your father taught you living in like the mountains of Agusan?
True. But Paco, you've seen a lot around the Philippines, and I'm sure you've seen these things that are, like let's say challenging in terms of like, and maybe are there any stories that you can that are top of mind, like that you want to share about your travels around the Philippines?
There are a lot, man. Currently we're working on a story on the indigenous communities of the Philippines, and when you look, just as a teaser, when you look at their situation, you really can very quickly identify a lot of not the source, but a lot of the problems that plague everybody. It's access to livelihood, it's access to clean water, natural resources. Take the example of Marinduque. Marinduque was one of the largest mining disasters in the Philippines. And I'm not pro mining. I'm not against mining. I'm pro doing mining right, and I know there are companies who do it right. But there seems to be little regard, I think, on a legal level, for people who live off of the land and on the land. And I think that causes a lot of problems. And the number one example of this is the indigenous populations. We were just doing an interview the other day, and the analogy is, we see our home as our source of security, right? We have our fridge where our food is, we have our bed, we have a light, we have a laptop. That's our safe zone. For a lot of the indigenous populations, not just in the Philippines, but around the world, that safe zone is expanded to hundreds and thousands of hectares. They might not live in a structure. They might live under a very simple bamboo roof, but for them, their concept of their space is that forest, is that wetland. That's where the refrigerator is. That's where they get their food. That's where they get the fuel for fire. So, that's where a lot of the conflict happens, where we have a very specific understanding of what life should be like, which is this. And out in the field, it's a very different concept. And those two things are in conflict, I think. Yeah. It's a very simple analogy, but Steps, you're out in the field. You go out there. You're working, I'm sure, with small rural communities, whether they be indigenous populations or not. But what are you seeing out there?
Well, now since they have a commission, it's much better. We were actually talking about this with Raf Janicio. Remember Nikki?
Yeah,
a couple of weeks ago. Mad
Travel.
Yeah, so they really work with the IPs as well, and since NCIP was put together and we're able to use ancestral maps and match them with the actual GIS maps of the LRA and the Registry of Deeds. At least now, no one can land grab from them anymore. Because, for example, one of the main guys in NCIP Region 3 is a lawyer and a geodetic engineer. So he's the one who plots out, this is the border, right? Based on satellite imagery and the radar, LiDAR, all the new types of technology.
So, to pick up on what you were saying, I before this whole lockdown, I was in a couple of places photographing different parts of the Philippines, once with a drone and once just with a camera, relatively remote. And a couple of the locals approached me either while I was shooting or after we'd shot. And the first thing they asked is, nagsasurvey ba kayo?
Survey.
So, and not in a nice way. So there is that, we don't want the map, because once you map something, it becomes a reality, right? Once it's mapped, once it's locked in, that's it. There's no fudging.
The technology, it's all integrated.
Man.
I mean, well, not all, but a lot of it is integrated now.
Before, it was such a thing. I think until not now, but the Google mapping, all that car going everywhere, people in backpacks just mapping, video, photo of everything. You think it's so cool, but picking up from what you said about it literally making it a reality, putting it into existence. Now I sort of understand when surfers they don't want to share their secret spots. I totally understand that now. I know it's really for the waves, but at the same time they're protecting the space because people just, when there are a lot more people, it just it just turns the place into like, I guess
nabababoy din eh.
Yeah, nabababoy talaga. And I think
Pag
that's a sad
sobrang
part.
dami. I think that's the reality. Pag sobrang dami ng tao, nabababoy.
I mean, I wish there was like a way to find like some like a midway, you know, instead of just bastardizing all these places.
Well, hopefully the discipline that we learn over this lockdown carries over, right? That's always the optimistic outlook.
Yeah.
Like keep the good habits, let go of the bad habits that you were able to shake off, and let's see how it all goes. Because no one knows.
No one knows.
I have a question for both of you, and Nikki, I know you've traveled around. Congratulations, by the way, on the broadcasting of your show on
Discovery. Thank you, man. Thank you. Appreciate that. I was like, we were so surprised. Like we totally forgot about it, and everyone was like, "Yo, man, we're on Discovery." I'm like, "Oh yeah." Like
it's like finding 1,000 peso bill in your pocket, like in your pants. Like, oh
yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
On that, I know you've traveled. Oh my God, I lost my train of thought. But there's this debate, right, that the Filipino is undisciplined.
Mm-hmm.
Diba? Oh, we should be more like the Singaporeans. We should be more disciplined. And this is a question. This is a working theory. But doesn't discipline come naturally if there is a very strong identity of self and a very strong pride of place and person?
Yeah.
Because we're all Pinoy ako, diba? Pinoy pride when it's Manny Pacquiao has a fight, but then when you're out there and you just throw basura, diba? I don't know if there's a pride of self. Hey, this is my country. And we see it with that island group that's out in the West Philippine Sea, by the way, if anybody's listening. But there's a lack of a pride of place that goes deeper than flying a flag or Manny Pacquiao. I don't know why that is. Does that go back to the fact that the Pinoy's identity has always been so mixed? There's there's the Philam, there's the Mestizo, there's the Chinoy, there's the I don't know what.
I definitely think that. Yeah,
I have to agree as well. It boils down, in my opinion, I think I mean this in the best possible way and with the best intentions. We are not a solid nation as a people. It's the identity should be rooted on some form of nationalistic pride, like you said, and the lack of that leads to a lack of identity. So we're not sure as a people who we are, and then each region has a different dialect pa. And then they all see Manila as Imperial Manila, where budget seems to run through and gets distributed depending on politics. So that really skews
That's
it.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Nikki, sorry, you're gonna say something.
Yeah, I agree with Snap too. Especially since we're having a lot of conversations about this, and I feel like we're barely scratching the surface. But like, I guess for me, like my interest really comes in. I mean, I've always been fascinated with tribal cultures, and I've had opportunities to meet some of them. And like the one that I love the most is there's a story of when actually for the show Origins, like when you went to Batanes. And it was like one of those, I forget the name of the tribe, but they were a fisher tribe. And one of the guys there was able to go to Manila for like, I think a year or two. And, he worked a job and he moved back to Batanes. Like he was like, I experienced Manila, but I don't feel like I don't want that kind of life. Because there he was saying na trabaho ka lang, tapos traffic, tapos kain, tapos tulog. Pero dito, like, I'm gonna catch my fish, I'm gonna grow my rice, and I can just live, Like, and they catch the fish. It's funny, like their ancient practice is already sustainable. They don't overfish during certain months. They use symbols as like when the bait is caught a certain way, they see it as like either you gotta tighten the belt or you can like help other people, and there are consequences too. If you break the rules, you gotta offer a pig. And I don't know, like for me that was a beautiful story because it just made me realize that wow, like he doesn't envy us.
No
he
way.
loves the life that they're able to live. And for me, I think I always say this, especially when we had a conversation with Raf, like we can learn so much from them because I feel like because you were colonized by the Americans, by the Spanish, we're also driven by those kinds of ambitions. But if you go back to the roots, our ancestral roots, especially the tribal cultures, I think that's a bit more. It goes against the mainstream ideologies of what success is. But like I think it's for me personally, it's something I would want to cultivate more. And I wish more people would see that.
I mean, you're talking about the Ivatans of Batanes, though, who I think because of geographical isolation have maintained a very strong cultural and social link with each other. Otherwise, they don't eat. Otherwise, they die out, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about, recognizing the indigenous wisdom, the indigenous knowledge that exists in all peoples around the world, and especially around the Philippines. And yet, I just saw a photograph on Instagram the other day that under a bridge it said "Bawal ang mga Aita dito," because they were sleeping under a bridge. So there has to be a change in perception about that, because I don't think we can begin a search for, okay, let's really dig into who we are. Because a lot of the times when I talk to fellow Pinoys, and I'm half Spanish, but I consider myself Pinoy, the conversation it really ends when America arrived, right? That's the identity goes back till then. It doesn't go further. It's a tough situation. A lot of it driven by economics, sadly, I think.
I think that's that. I think for me, that's the sad part. And I feel like, with the work that you've been doing with Grid, I think that's, it sheds such a different light on, the Philippines. Like it makes you proud because like it's so diverse, it's so deep, and we barely scratched the surface. But like, I mean, I guess
and you get to see it firsthand, which is like quite rare for a Filipino to.
Yeah. When I was involved back in the show, What I See and Two Stops Over a few years ago, I mean, it was such a privilege to travel with camera in hand to all these places. But there are a couple of things that frustrate me. Number one, with the TV show that I was involved with, and with Grid. And the number one frustration is that we don't broadcast or publish in Tagalog or Bisaya. And I think the fact that like my kids who go to school here in Manila can barely speak Tagalog.
Yeah.
I think that's the wrong way to go.
Yes, for sure.
I wish there was a way we could translate the magazine into Tagalog and Bisaya. And oh God, I hope my partners don't hear me and just give it away for free, in schools or We're just trying to figure out a way to do it, because I think we need the audience in Manila to help us exist, right? Because they're the advertising platforms. But in my head, I'd like to see a small classroom, I don't know, in Benguet, in Batanes, wherever, have some sort of a copy of the same stories that we present to us city dwellers, right? And to see if they find it valuable. I'm not saying our stuff is educational material, but, why not have it as something they can access?
If they're from any IP, they have something to take pride in again. So that's a really good grassroots approach to it, rather than trying to go top down, which is most advertising strategy.
With all due respect to the DepEd and the school system, and I think they're doing incredible work, it's very hard to get any sort of written material into the official school. So it'd have to be somewhere else.
What is the name of that NGO? There's an NGO that makes preschools in public schools, and they donate sets of books. So
nice.
Could be. I'll get the name of that and get
please.
Back to you. I help them with 2 projects in Western Mindanao.
For me, I think language is a big barrier. One of the reasons I think Manila is seen as the imperial power that just sort of filters all the money and power is because of language. Because Manila is English speaking. So one of the things I like to try and do when I'm traveling around is to listen to local radio, whether it's in the van or in the carinderia if you're eating, And if I can understand, if it's in Tagalog and I can understand it, the way local radio works, the news that is important in local radio and the way that news is presented in local radio is a whole different universe from
for sure, yeah,
for sure, man.
ANC, CNN. And to the credit of ANC and CNN, I know they have a Visaya version and I know they have Tagalog shows.
Like I feel like I remember, maybe even saw this, Paco. Like in Siargao, they have like this magazine, like it's a local newsletter basically, wherein it's about the community, but then they also have the local dialect as well, translated each article, which is pretty cool. Like I feel like sana they can do that with like with local publications, no? Because like it really is. Yeah. When you think about it, it is alienating. You are alienating a majority of the population because it's all in English, and even like the big newspapers are all mostly English. And it's funny. I didn't even think about this, but now that you mention it, it is such a it's a thing. Like it should not be like this.
They have their own local flavor. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, to build, as you were saying earlier, to build an identity as a Filipino people, I think first we have to recognize that we are peoples, not one. There's the Tagalog always takes precedence, and as usual. But I think the more we're able to realize that there are all these, how can we have airports where everything is either in English, Japanese, or Mandarin, and there's no Bisaya in the Cebu airport?
Yeah.
How is that possible?
Yeah.
How is that possible? It shouldn't be. It should be, hey, look, we're in the Bisaya. Put it in Bisaya, man. I mean, even on top of the Tagalog.
That's so interesting. That's so interesting.
I'd probably get lost, but hey. So it is.
We got ways.
That's the beauty of it, right? I mean, like whenever, like, when you're in another, let's say Mexico, I mean, there's so many dialects there too. And, like a lot of them don't adapt to you. You're going to have to adapt to them. No. Like you're going to need to like, you know what I mean? Like
it's the same thing here. I mean, you live in the province, you know that, Nikki, diba? When you visited Cebu, when you visited me in Dipolo, I speak the dialect. Like we don't go around speaking English or Tagalog.
Yeah. You do become the other.
But it's not an other. It's just another dialect.
But I think the thing is like for me personally, like I think the problem also stems wherein there is sort of like it seems like there's always like you kind of want to up the other person, or let's say you're Tagalog, but then you go to Cebu, and parang I remember some conversations where like, do you speak Cebuano? I'm like, no. It's okay. But it's like at the same time, it's sort of a loaded punch. Like you don't, you're not really gonna. It's like you just kind of branded yourself because you don't know how to speak Cebuano, and I think that's an interesting thing.
Yeah, I guess it's cross-cultural misunderstanding. Parang even the societal norms are not exactly the same, right? I mean, social norms are not the same in Visayas versus Luzon and Mindanao.
You know what?
Vice versa.
As a photographer, I want that. I don't want everything to look the same or be the same everywhere. I want to feel uncomfortable. I want to feel out of place. I want to feel that, oops, I'm not supposed to do that here because I'm in Palawan, or it's different and I'm sure they were before. And I'm not saying to go back to medieval times, but one of the hardest things, Nikki, back me up here, dude. Back me up here. One of the hardest things of shooting in the Philippines is the monotony.
Yeah.
Because I might piss some people off here, but
it's okay.
If you go to a small town, a medium-sized town in the north, in the Visayas or in Mindanao, looks the same.
Yeah.
Our and I don't mean to make it superficial, but the material signifiers of who we are have disappeared. Why are we so fascinated when we go to Bali? In Bali, you could be in a bathroom somewhere and you're in Bali. Yeah. Why? Because the material signifiers of Balinese are everywhere. You stay in any hotel in Bali, you're in Bali.
Yeah.
Here, not so much. What happened to our architecture? What happened to our fabrics? What happened to... And I know corporate brands are the ones that keep us alive here. But I remember a sari-sari store as a kid on Singalong Street, where I grew up for a while. And in my memory, it was this great, fantastic place. And it looked like a sari-sari store. No advertising, no tarps, no nothing. It was just a whole bunch of stuff in a small place. And that sari-sari store looked different from the one on the other corner of Singalong Street, right? I can't find a single sari-sari store to shoot anymore.
Yeah, without the...
Name me one that's not
a logo.
Yeah. Right? And for me, that's really sad, because it comes up sometimes in travel articles. Oh, what's really Pinoy? Oh, a sari-sari store, which is our convenience store. And I never recommend to shoot it anymore because I can't find one to shoot.
Yeah. No, totally feel you, man. Yeah, it's really, that's the most frustrating thing we've been so... I mean, I guess we're still in the process. We're still being colonized with brands, and like, I'm not saying they're the enemy. I'm saying it's a reality. But I wish that... Wait, what's a good example? Let's say, I remember traveling to Chiayi in Taiwan, and I heard about them because of this. They did an episode on it on Netflix for street food. But when I went there, it was like I was transported to another time. The architecture was preserved. It wasn't like there were still like Pizza Hut, all these like big establishments there, but they integrated these businesses to the existing architecture. And at the same time, there were like really old school, like tea houses and like a hole in the walls. And, like sometimes I feel like we need a Ministry of Culture to like find a way to... Do we?
But do we? We do kind of have... Do we? We have a couple of organizations. But I mean, they're trying to do that in vegan. I mean, when...
And Las Casas did it. Las Casas, I think, did a really good job. But they transported some of those houses.
But for me, Las Casas is a different case because it's a resort. I mean, it's all private property.
True.
I think
it's not open.
Yeah. But I'm sorry to look back to it and to hammer on it again, but this all goes to the sense of pride of your own history and your own cultural identity. Because, if you go to that street in Taiwan and you say, I'm going to open a big modern convenience store and make it modern, you get laughed and kicked out of town, I'm sure. Because people are like, no, this is who we are. This is the way we want to keep it. This is our history. This is our tradition. How many buildings have we lost in Metro Manila? Historic, beautiful buildings we've lost. And the argument is always, private, development. We've lost a lot to development, man. I don't think you can call it development anymore when you're losing more than what you're gaining, right?
Totally agree, man. I think like
really... Not even a zero-sum game, right? It's a net negative.
Yeah. It's not.
They're basically making the Philippines into like a clone.
I'll give you a very shallow, very selfish example. Hopefully, I'll get to do it again. The Philippines has been on the travel bucket list for quite a few years before this whole COVID thing.
Yeah.
And I'd always get a Manila assignment. Hey, let's do I'll get a call from a magazine in the US or anywhere. I'd say, hey, we want to do a Manila story, and we'd really like to do a cover with it. We just need that one iconic Manila shot that, when you see it on the cover of magazines, you're like, Manila. Where is that?
EDSA?
No, Manila.
I mean,
Ed says like...
I don't know.
Okay. Here's the test. Bali. Can you imagine a cover image from Bali? Yeah. Very simple,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
A lot of the cultural stereotypes go to Kuala Lumpur, Petronas Twin Towers, done. That's iconic. Singapore, Merlion, iconic. Manila? A mall?
Dati Manila Bay, but they said it was the most beautiful sunset, but then...
Yeah, but it's not.
No.
It's not, and
there's nothing to shoot.
Trash.
No, but even then, they haven't built anything on that... I'm going to get into trouble here. They haven't built anything on that whole strip.
Yeah.
You're right.
It's iconic. That's I mean, the last thing that was built was the CCP and the PICC, which has its own baggage of history. And
yeah, for sure.
But
yeah, you're right. No, they didn't. It didn't get pushed forward, or like they didn't do something with Intramuros. I mean, that would make it.
On a positive note, when the National Museum of Natural History opened, and it was the old office of the DOT, right? In my recent memory, that is the first public space developed by our government for public consumption for everybody. That's absolutely stunning. When was the last time that happened? Where our leaders built something for the sheer pleasure of the public going and enjoying it, and that's just aesthetically gorgeous, right?
Yeah.
And don't say the Skyway, please don't say the Skyway. I mean, if we had just one project like that every year, not just in Manila, in different parts of the Philippines, the government commits to creating this beautiful masterpiece of a public space, not a monument, not a statue, but a public space where people can gather and enjoy the space. One a year. I mean, we transform our perception of our public spaces, right?
We will, Yeah. Like, I feel like that's so, we need some cool kids or like some cool people.
That will help mold the culture.
Help mold the culture.
That could be a cultural meme. If this happens, Paco, we can look back at this conversation and be like, wow, you called the meme before it actually happened. Because,
Cebu Airport. Sorry. The new Cebu Airport, I have to say, is beautiful. That's another one.
It's got solar on top, right? I mean, I'm sure you've seen that talaga, the way they did it. Super nice.
I think we should.
You know what? It's shallow, but we need those iconic places. We need those public iconic places. It's just good,
It's healthy.
It's the way a national identity is built in a positive way.
Yeah. And like to kind of like sound off to what Snap always says, like, I think we got to start focusing on the wins, the good things about our culture, and start highlighting them instead of like all this bad news, all this propaganda. Like, because there's a lot of good news. There is a lot. It's just that we're not talking about them.
Nope.
Like, it's propaganda mechanism for good news, and it's just personal contributions in whatever way.
Yeah,
it doesn't even have to be something super spectacular. It can just be something that you see and then, this is cool. I think share your light. Right?
Yeah.
And you have the perfect tool.
Yeah.
To share.
And you know what's funny? Like, I was just talking to somebody lately that this is the first time it's ever happened to me that I'm screen capping all these new local brands on Instagram who are getting into like architecture, vintage stuff, plants, like even like essential oils. And I don't know if it's because of the lockdown, but I think it's a renaissance period though for a lot of like, I think local people
are
becoming yeah. Really, it's so cool. Like, people are doing more artisan things, right?
Our civilization.
So let's hope for the best, But Paco, man, like, what are your thoughts, man? On like, what's your, like, to wrap this thing up? I guess what's your hope? Let's end this on a good note. What are your hopes for the country, for Manila?
I hope traffic doesn't go back to what it was. No, but seriously, although we want to look for the positive, there's a lot of suffering out there. I think even before the crisis, there already was. I think it's on us, and when I say us, not just like us who have access to cameras, but it's on us to recognize those stories, and to spread them, not to be a downer and not to be negative. We're all sitting at home and we're all looking at our phones and we're all, doing blogs and watching videos and able to connect in different ways. So hopefully we can discover some of these stories, because as someone who has been humbly privileged to be able to travel throughout the country, and I'm talking to two guys who also travel a lot.
Yeah.
there's a lot out there, and it makes you realize that, the way you live your life is just one of many options of living life on this earth, right?
Exactly.
And everybody should be given that choice to be able to choose how. If you want to farm up in Mindanao and grow papayas, hopefully you can do that. If you want to go back to Batanes as an Ivatan because that's what you grew up and you don't want Manila, you should be able to do that. We're not all after the apartment in PGC and the car and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But to just realize that we're not all after that same thing. You got me really philosophizing today.
Dude, that's amazing, man. No, I love that. I love that perspective.
But it's good. It's great.
Yeah, we need that. We need this kind of
that's
energy.
The kind of stuff we want to hear.
Yeah.
And raw. I love how it's raw.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not a speech. You know what I'm saying? It's like you really just float.
I think I didn't bake today, so I've got a lot.
I'm glad you didn't bake. Man.
I'm not gonna lie. I baked earlier.
What do you? Wait. Snap, what are you baking? Again, we need a separate thing here, man. I need to know the agriculture. I need to know the baking.
Yeah. No, we're all baked.
A lot of different stuff. Yeah.
Right. But Paco, thanks so much, man. This was I'm glad you joined us. This was so much fun.
This is great.
And thanks for taking the lead. I'm glad you steered it to different corners. That's the best part, man. That's
good.
The best
if
part.
you didn't, Nicky would have talked about COVID again and again and again.
Yeah.
I can ask questions for days, dude. Seriously, that's the fun part of it. See you soon, hopefully, and not on a screen.
Yeah, hopefully, man. Be safe.
Yeah,
Take care.
Hopefully soon.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Paco.
Yeah,
see you.
Stay safe.